The world can't save itself, Agent. Welcome back.
Indeed we are, for one last round. And we're back for our Let's Play of I Expect You to Die. Last time we did all the speedrun stuff and got this cool pocket watch. And it's enhanced operative division. Your mind's your best weapon. Cool. And for getting literally everything in the game, we get access to this button. Ooh.
This is a commentary bubble. The button you just pressed toggles them on and off. They are now on in all of the puzzles, as well as this room. They contain interesting developer tidbits. For instance, the time frame with the art style we were going for was late 50s, early 60s. You know, the prime spy era. Of course, we needed to fudge the technology here and there. For instance, Zor's retina scanner was conceived of in 1935, but the first working one wasn't until the early 80s. But this button and this radio are period specific.
Cool.
Another thing we wanted to keep in mind was close interactions versus far interactions. Sometimes far interactions can set up a grand scale of things, but really it's the close interactions that work the best in VR. Freezing things and being able to look all around them is really cool. Being up close and personal is more fun in VR.
Noted.
One of the problems we had to solve on I Expect You to Die was objects getting hidden behind other objects in a level. Players would constantly lose objects behind desks and chairs while solving the puzzle. Using physics raycast against every object in the scene to determine if the player can see it wasn't a viable solution due to performance concerns. Instead, we came up with an approximation called hidden volumes. A hidden volume is essentially a trigger volume that does two things when an object falls into it. First, it applies a special X-ray shader to the object so that it can be seen through other objects. And then, it puts the object on a separate physics layer, which allows the player to highlight and pick up objects through other objects.
Useful information.
The I Expect You to Die you are playing now is the end result of many, many iterations. This villainous librarian was the antagonist in one of those iterations. And speaking of iterations, we completed many of them with the help from our playtesters. Early in development, we'd have coworkers try prototypes.
Rocco, not now!
Mock-ups of puzzles. Then we would bring naive players into our offices to playtest the game in white box form. That is, most of the art would be untextured, simple forms, mostly cubes. Then later we'd continue almost daily in-house testing, as well as sending the game out to third-party testing facilities. Among other more targeted questions, we'd always ask these 5. What was your favorite or best moment or interaction? What was your least favorite or most frustrating moment? Was there anything you wanted to do, but the game didn't support? If you could wave a magic wand and add, remove, or change anything, what would it be? And when did you feel most clever? By tracking these answers, we could focus in on how to make our game as great as possible.
Good to know. What else? What else? I'm looking around.
We went through many names for what we now call souvenirs. They were additional objectives, they were spy achievements, mementos. No matter what their name, they're fun to play with. Enjoy collecting them all.
Indeed, I did.
For texture memory and draw call reasons, there are only 4 unique book covers in the office, but you can be sure that all are standard issue for EOD agents. One thing that we kept in mind as we were designing puzzles was, can items be used for more than one purpose? For instance, the bottle is fun to play around with. You can pop the cork, release the champagne, have a little moment of celebration, but you can also break the bottle and use the shards of glass to cut the wires on the bomb. Is it the multi-tool or the unitasker? Whenever possible, we'd go for the multi-tool.
Oh, go. Tastes good too.
You have to be careful when you're conducting playtests in VR to make sure that your guests aren't too immersed. We've had a half dozen or so people fall right out of their chairs they're reaching for things. That's why we put a nice soft rug underneath our playtesting chair to protect both the hardware and people's knees.
Yeah. Here's one more. Here it is.
Oh hey, this is the commentary note I made way back when to prototype commentary notes. Congrats on finding it, I guess? On I Expect You to Die, we designers would often write really hacky code in order to test ideas, before tech went through and made less janky final versions. Commentary notes were no different.
Nothing in there, nothing in there. I'd say we go poking around. Back here again.
We're calling this...
Yeah.
You may be wondering...
For location, we wanted something that was familiar and had good affordances. That is, things around you would lend themselves to natural interactions you could immediately grasp and understand.
Poke at it a bit.
If those affordances were varied, pulling, turning, pushing, opening, all the better. A car interior lent itself to that, as well as the seated experience we are after.
Good to know.
So we were presented with this idea of a button that releases a pile of scorpions. Bonnie and I thought it was hilarious and had a fun time trying to figure out what we could record. We started with some plastic tongs from the studio's kitchen for the claws. We also had a whole bunch of plastic straws that we had cut up into small pieces for another recording session. So I grabbed a handful of those and started bouncing them around in my palms. The result sounded like a bunch of little crunchy bug feet skittering around, so we recorded Bonnie clacking the tongs like castanets while I bounced these little straw pieces around in my palms. We must have looked ridiculous. But mix in a little hissing sound and you've got yourself a pile of scorpions.
Noted.
The original phone messages were all submitted by fans and a few Shell folks via a voicemail box at Shell Games advertised on our blog. The distortion you hear is real. Anthony Daniels' lines, as Daniel Sands, were added after the creation of the other 3 puzzles to foreshadow Puzzle 2.
Good to know. Thinks every time. That's why I'm still doing this puzzle. Can't exactly reach it without the window being broken. And I can't break the window without venting out all this, I don't know, mustard gas? Some sort of gas. Definitely poisonous.
When we first started this project, it was a series of interface prototypes to see what would feel good in VR. We wanted a mostly sitting experience to help eliminate motion sickness, and we wanted an input scheme that everyone would have access to, but that wouldn't break your presence in VR. The mouse interface Jason and Matt worked on had telekinesis, which felt pretty good, but there was one problem. We wanted you to feel cool and be awesome, but who can be awesome while effectively being tied to a chair? But wait! Spies get into situations like this all the time, and they always manage to turn the tables. What if we could make an escape the room game themed around that idea?
And here we are.
In I Expect You to Die, we use a surface-based collision audio system. The game uses 4 different types of surfaces, which are hard, soft, glass, and metal. Every object that can be picked up has a normal hitting sound and a heavy hitting sound for each of these surface types. When an object collides with the world, we first determine the type of surface it collided with, and then we use the collision velocity to blend the normal hitting sound and the heavy hitting sound for that surface type.
After blowing the back door open, try creating a net of hovered money outside the window. That way you can catch all the items flying out of the back of the plane. Though they are non-interactive items. Sorry, performance reasons.
Sorry, what can you do?
After blowing the back door open, try creating a net of hovered money outside the window. That way you can catch all the items flying out of the back of the plane. Though they are non-interactive items. Sorry, performance reasons.
Ah, the glories of jank. That's the break. Woo!
Parachutes deployed.
Yeah. Boop. Do.
We finished...
Squeaky clean time. I could use a bath.
Those people recognize you.
Come on now.
We believe Zoraxis is creating a deadly supervirus. We know Zor wants revenge on the agency, but this is a tad extreme. Get into that lab, and I'll walk you through making an antivirus.
First, let's get the ones outside.
The final Operation Squeaky Clean combines science-based puzzles with some light security evasion. but original versions of this level leaned much more intensely into the security side of things. I'm pretty sure we could make an entirely new level based on some of the stuff we tried and cut, like hiding from security cameras and eavesdropping on conversations in adjacent rooms. Maybe we still will. If we do, pretend you didn't listen to this.
Noted.
Oh, the sandwich. Since we had set aside some time for Foley recording, lots of test tubes, beakers, coffee thermoses, and things to tap and hit against metal and glass, I decided to do realistic Foley for what it was like to throw a sandwich. Turns out, not as interesting as you would hope, but very messy. I took 2 slices of bread and secured them together with a toothpick in an attempt to minimize mess, and threw that thing against all surfaces imaginable. The result from everything? Very light tapping sounds and lots of crumbs everywhere. The final sandwich you hear in-game is doctored up in post to be more interesting, because, sadly, real sandwiches are not as fun as you'd think.
Security disabled.
One of the big concerns in window washing was how players afraid of heights would react. We wanted to make it manageable for them, but we also felt the sense of height was an essential part of the setting and didn't want to lose that. We spent a lot of time changing the platform size and railing height in order to try to hit the right balance, and even created a list of everyone at Shell Games who was afraid of heights so we could subject them to our cruel experiments. It's probably not completely solved, but I think we got the game to the place where agoraphobes wouldn't be driven out, at least. I mean, if you are listening to this, you got through it. Though this bubble is on the ground below, so you're probably not that afraid of heights anyway.
Good to know.
Here is a problem we struggled with for a while. Before the window is broken, you want to be further away from the building so that interactions with the window feel good. After the window is broken, however, you want to be as close to the building as possible so that you can interact with what is inside easily. In a game where moving the player is one of the quickest ways to kick them out of the experience, this presented a huge problem. We tried several things, teleporting the player forward on window break, which players didn't notice but felt like a bug in footage, moving them forward super slowly over the course of 5 minutes, which most didn't notice but those who did freaked out, and the idea that this level could be a standing level, where the player could physically step forward and back. We even tried turning the window washing platform into a cherry picker that the players could move forward and backwards at will, which was interesting. Nauseating, but interesting. So how did we solve it, in the end? Well, we didn't. We made it go away. David and Chris sidestepped the problem entirely by angling the window away from you, so the player could be right up against the building without feeling pressed against the glass. It's a little architecturally weird, but never let realistic architecture get in the way of good gameplay design.
If it works, it works.
The idea of a paper airplane was something we wanted for a long time, but never got around to making it for the game. Then, the Saturday after GDC, I grabbed some of my friends in the game industry, and we sat down and had a paper airplane jam. It took us about 4 hours, but it worked out well and we got it in the game.
Good to know.
This periodic table actually required a lot of iteration, despite being a simple object. When the table was big, it would obstruct huge chunks of the player's view when they brought it near, or cause them to knock things off the platform. Smaller was better, but when we made it small, the table blent into the wall, and people wouldn't pick it up, getting completely blocked on the puzzle. The solution wound up being to stop tweaking the size and just make the table a little crooked, which triggers that impulse players had to straighten it out, and thus try to interact with it. It's a good example of how the small details are so critical in a game like this, and that tweaks can change a puzzle from unbeatable to solvable.
Yep. Game Designer 101. Don't expect your players to know what the hell you're thinking of. Alright, next up. Submersible, my beloved.
Your next mission will take you to the beautiful...
This thing's a death trap.
Welcome to our state-of-the-art
Yeah.
Zoraxis escape pod. An explosion has
The
disabled
drawer of
primary
grenades
function.
was originally
This is
suggested
an
by Brad,
emergency.
perhaps on a
Please
whim,
start engine
but it cracked me up every time a player would open it and immediately react by slamming it back shut. As if to say, no way I want anything to do with that drawer of grenades. I added money and a second flare gun later, because tempting you to grab money out of a drawer full of grenades is funny. And John really wanted the dual-wield flare guns at the end of the level.
Yeah.
For one brief, beautiful afternoon, an epic attack and battle with a giant squid was floated as a climax to this puzzle, before budgetary sanity reeled us back in. perhaps in a future installment, but only if you go and post in the comments that you want more squid battles. While brainstorming for puzzles, we had a lot of ideas, one of which was a bathroom at a spy party. It would house the secret entrance to something, and you'd be thwarting its security in hilarious ways. But then we realized bathrooms have mirrors, which we were avoiding. Did you ever notice the car doesn't have rear view or side view mirrors? Bathrooms also usually have lots of water and cloth towels, both costly to performance. Oh well, no spy bathroom for you.
Just get this. Alright. There we go.
Escape pod drained.
Figured might as well see if anything at the end is straight
This
up,
was
you know.
the first puzzle we physically prototyped with cardboard boxes, or as we have come to lovingly refer to it as, brown boxes.
Okay.
Hole secure.
That's one way of doing it, I suppose.
A crucial aspect of any great VR experience is hitting that
secure.
90 frames per second. On I Expect You to Die, one of our project goals from the get-go has been to hit that target frame rate. We have taken several steps to achieve this, one of which was to use baked lighting for all static objects in the level and use 1 or 2 directional lights for the dynamic objects. However, in the deep dive level, we wanted to increase the tension during the self-destruct sequence by flashing a red light.
Engine running.
Since turning on and off a real-time red light with dynamic shadows was not viable for us, we tried something different. We created 2 additional light bakes for the level, one using red light sources and another using dark light sources. Then, during the self-destruct sequence, we switched between the red and the dark bake lighting based on an interval to fake the effect of a flashing red light.
Good to know.
While brainstorming for puzzles, we had a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
One of
Wait.
which was a bathroom at a
I
spy
already
party.
clicked that one, I'm sorry.
Oh, hello. Oh, hi. Actually, this is Naomi Kyle. Hey. Hope you're enjoying this submarine experience. I am, of course, the voice of the submarine AI that you hear in your head. Hopefully that means that you're completely sane and enjoying this game thoroughly. I Expect You to Die is actually a game that I demoed a while ago and was very, very interested in playing a character in. So I reached out to Shell Games, who made this amazing game that you are currently in. And I hope that you guys enjoy it because I had a really great time voicing this character for you. So hope you don't die. Bye.
Escape pod drained.
Yeah. Siri had to be voiced by someone. She voiced whatever this thing is.
Self-destruct in 90 seconds.
Not Siri, Naomi.
Enter override code to abort.
Boop. Know this by heart now.
Self-destruct aborted.
Alright then, let's see what's up there.
We
Our
hope your
communications
escape
are
pod
back online.
experience was a pleasant
Signal
one.
us to let us
Please
know your
gather all
location.
your belongings, open the hatch above you, and signal your rescuers. Have a nice day.
Ah, there you are, Agent. We thought we'd lost you to the wilds of the Caribbean.
Grenade
We're
works
approaching
too.
your position now.
Alright.
I hate to say
Yeah. Yeah. You told me so. Yeah. I get it.
the coordinates you
All right, moving on to our winter vacation. Even though technically it's spring
The Alps are known for scenic vistas.
at time of recording. March 21st is spring. Spring equinox, that's when it starts. Summer solstice is June
You've certainly
21st.
made yourself comfortable in Zor's private hunting lodge. I hear the agency is handing out lodges just like this one to any agent who finds the new machine Zor is working on.
Although to
If I were you,
layman's
I'd find
terms,
that
like
machine.
June is like summer's been going on a while, but scientifically speaking, you know, I don't know, whatever.
The white box phase for this level saw us reorganizing a core set of features for weeks, and this placement juggling went on even into the phase when final art was being implemented. We knew we wanted to include scenery, like floor-to-ceiling windows and the fireplace and skylight, but layouts that look great in white box can feel terrible in VR. During rapid whiteboxing, we normally test out the scenes with low-fidelity baked lighting. The downside with this is that it's very hard to get a feel for what the scene will actually look like. To solve this, we started whiteboxing with real-time lights in a deferred rendering pipeline, testing that out in VR. When we were satisfied with the results, we folded back into forward rendering with baked lights. I'm sure our tech artist got goosebumps somewhere with me using VR and deferred rendering in the same sentence.
Nerd.
One other aspect that we found really fun was wearables. For instance, we see a lot of people have fun putting the cigar in their mouth, lighting it, and moving their head around. Of course, the hat as well. Surprisingly, many people's first action is to grab the hat off the rack and put it on. They end up wearing it the whole level. Even if they die, the next time they start, they'll put it back on their head. Are you one of those people?
Oh no, man.
Door alarm triggered. Dear gas activated.
Okay, no secret collectible, no secret dev bubbles in any of the drawers. No, that's just money.
Bear Archer was one of the first phrases that stuck with me from the beginning of development on this level. It seemed that no matter what happened in design, we would end up with the bear as a key character in the scene that you interact with. There was also some discussion at one point of making the bear speak to you, where his mouth would open and that is where the voice would come from that you hear, instead of the computer system on the desk. But that was thrown out early on. I'm glad at the end he is still as entertaining as he can be, and quite scary if you don't know how to survive bomb arrows.
Come on, grab it. Yeah. There we go.
This level once had a nuclear missile in a silo outside, instead of a gravity machine. Through a long series of events, we moved the missile itself to Operation Squeaky Clean, and went with no gravity here, because it allowed the machine to be closer, and frankly, no gravity in VR is pretty rad.
Indeed.
Early on, we had your friend, the support agent, being captured and held beneath the trapdoor in this room. You could throw him items, and if he didn't need them to escape, he'd throw them back, out of the hole. It was fun because throwing something in a hole and having a person off-screen throw it back to you was surprising, and the randomness felt pretty good. However, it was also frustrating and narrowed the player's focus, so they tended to get stuck. Rather than caring about their own goals, they only cared about what the person in the hole needed next. Ultimately, we went with the mix of parallel and serial tasks we have now.
Indeed. Anything else? Bear Archer, Silo, Hatch. Let me just check and see if there's anything in the hole. Like where the
Control
Operation
cartridge
Golden
accepted.
Goose is.
Voice authentication required.
Oh yeah. Boop. Fairly well, Bear.
Authentication failure. Deploying Bear Archer. Bear disarmed. Security malfunction. Insert data sphere override.
This doesn't bode well.
There it is.
Zero gravity is super fun in VR, and while a whole space station level never manifested itself, this machine is clearly the next best thing.
Zor's new device.
Some players may expect the first laser, but no one ever expects the second.
Destroy that machine.
Oh, wrong button. This button. Mikey, don't you start! Mikey! Mikey! Mikey, shut up! Rocco, get back from there, Mikey! Boys! Boys, I'm fucking boys! Boys! No! No! Stop it! No! 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 Stop it! Mikey, I'll lock you in the bedroom. Mikey! Fire out! Hold on a sec. I don't know what gets into those schmucks. Other than, I don't know. Gotta reset the thing now, because I'm all tanked. There we go. Moving on. Moving on. Moving on. Vacation. All I ever wanted. Trying to get away. Don't
Now,
copyright
because
strike
I
me.
have a passing fondness for you, I've booked you
Or
on
claim me. Strike is when you get freaking sued by YouTube.
The train stopping sequence at the beginning of the level was initially just audio that we played before fading into the level. We were never fully satisfied with this introduction. Later in development, we evaluated introducing some motion to better sell the sequence. Moving the train posed a few challenges, especially since the level was not built to handle this. Instead, we decided to move the environment around you to fake the train's motion. We were able to do this fairly easily since the train was on a curved bridge, and a simple rotation animation would do the trick. Finally, we wanted to make sure this didn't introduce discomfort for our players, and this is where the closed window shade came as a blessing. It helped keep the motion subtle and comfortable.
Work smarter, not harder.
Originally, the team wanted this level to be in a moving train, and since any kind of motion in VR needs to be handled carefully, it was one of the first things we prototyped. At first, our results were promising, and people who were prone to VR sickness seemed to do fine. However, as we started adding more visual and audio feedback, the comfort level started reducing. While we think there is a world where we could have made this work, we knew it would be at the cost of delivering a fun level, and so we decided not to do it. Instead, we came up with the story of Dr. Zor stopping the train on a bridge in the middle of nowhere and sending assassins your way.
Yeah, and he failed. Sometimes, it depends on how often I have to restart.
We wanted something to rival the Bear Archer from the last mission. Who am I kidding? Nothing could ever rival the Bear Archer. But Spear Guy does come close. You never expect Spear Guy. His name is the Groom in our world, and he's an infamous Indian assassin that wears traditional wedding garb and always gets his point across. We iterated on the text in this newspaper at least a dozen times, from big changes in the puzzle to little tweaks in wording and image placement. Half of the changes were made in the brown box stage, that is, when we prototyped with cardboard. At one point, there was math involving subtracting years from each other, and turns out people do not like doing math in VR. I think it's because you can't move your fingers and count on them well. While we still do have a little bit of math, it's much simpler now. And remember, Halloween is on the 31st.
I don't really need hints for that when I've already 100%ed the damn thing, thank you.
These are vada, served with a sambar, a kind of vegetarian soup. It's fried lentils, quite delicious, but you probably thought they were donuts, which is quite a common misconception. Either way, enjoy.
Tastes good anyways. Well, I assume I don't actually have a working taste buds in VR because it's just a fancy thing strapped to my eyeballs. Yeah, whatever.
There was a point in time when we had all your equipment in a secret agent briefcase, but it felt anticlimactic just having all your tools dumped in your lap, and a complex interaction of equipment sockets and an articulated physics object got awful really quick, so we cut the suitcase and decided to use a puzzle to reward you with equipment instead.
The phone is not only a crucial element for finding the defector and solving the puzzle of this level. We saw it as an opportunity for us to have some fun inventing characters and recording voiceovers. Most of the voices you hear are developers from Shell Games, and one of the passengers is having an interesting conversation in Polish and might even send you a little something if you play your cards right.
I've done that, been there, done that, pal. What about the other compartments? Hold on. Gotta be thorough. Nothing there. That's just stun grenades. That's it. Yeah, okay, never mind. Moving on. Yeah. Time for Spot J.
Our train defector had information.
Oh, you're going to get a kick out of this level, let me tell you.
When an opportunity presents itself, we
Well
like to
done
make
sneaking
callbacks
in.
to previous
We
levels of I
know
Expect
that Death
You to
Engine
Die.
intel is
This not only
somewhere
helps
in
enrich
here.
the game's world, but when an opportunity
Sorry.
presents itself, we like to make callbacks to previous levels of I Expect You to Die. This not only helps enrich the game's world, but can also serve as a hint. Some of the purely flavorful examples of this in the boardroom are the Scorpion and the Vivarium and calling Zor's weapon the Death Engine. both of which are references from Friendly Skies.
Yep.
In the past, we've talked about our games having the goal of being transformational, so they changed something about the player, usually for the better. As we've developed I Expect You to Die levels, we've kind of realized that they have this additional pillar of being literally transformational, like an Autobot. In the seated single location, though, the best way we found to do this is allow them to see your location itself change, like compartments open, things transform and switch around, revealing toys to play with. That's the main reason the lectern on the table is this multifaceted device that's slowly showing its complexity.
Yep. Fun, too.
The name plaques in the room serve a few purposes. A hint to the location of the missing chair and the X-ray goggles, foreshadowing of what henchmen you will encounter in the
Not that I
level,
worry about
and a
Zol's
reference
collection,
to a
but
defector
do
from
try
first
not to
class.
make too much noise.
We initially wanted them to have a direct puzzle solving. The name plaques in the room
Sorry.
serve a few purposes. A hint to the location of the missing chair and the X-ray goggles, foreshadowing of what henchmen you will encounter in the level, and a reference to a defector from first class. We initially wanted them to have a direct puzzle-solving application as well, where the player would be assaulted with multiple laser beams and would need to use all of the plaques to block the beams.
Yeah, that would be fun, I suppose.
This puzzle started off as a chess challenge, but it turned out to be very difficult to balance, such that it would appeal both to those familiar with chess rules as well as those with only rudimentary understanding. Next, the puzzle became Tangram inspired. It was going to be about making a Z shape out of various geometric shaped pieces. This, however, failed in early playtests as simply not being something that is fun with current generation VR controls. Finally, we settled on a simplified version where the real puzzle is figuring out that the golden pieces are meant to slot into the lectern. Initially, we had 12 pieces instead of 6.
That seems a bit excessive.
So this awesome statue of a bull by Thorn, one of our artists, was the primary reason we ended up setting this level in Madrid. Initially, we wanted Dr. Zor's private collection of art to just convey their dominating, brutal, aristocratic character, which the bullfight statue really excellently did. But as the puzzle developed, the real-world location of where the bunker is took on such great importance that we were looking for kind of subtle ways to reinforce it in the mind of the players. If you look at it, you can also see paintings inspired by the Spanish Armada's defeat, just to reinforce the Spain setting. Of course, the handler at the beginning of the mission just tells you outright that he's sending you to Madrid, but we've kind of come to terms with the fact that no one listens to anything he says, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
This hidden compartment originally had a gun in it as well. We quickly discovered that everyone wanted to shoot their way out of the boardroom, one henchman at a time. We were thinking of giving them a gun with no bullets as a gag, but ultimately we decided it would be better to remove it entirely to keep players focused on escaping instead of looking for missing bullets.
Noted.
Finding ways to kill the player that can't be avoided is tricky. You can dodge a saw blade, duck as an arrow shoots towards your head, so we found that things like deadly gas and explosions work well.
The
find we
firing
use
of a
deaths
combination
like that
lock
in just about every level somewhere.
Unmistakable.
For this level, we wanted to add
Sometimes
some new
I
ones,
do
so we
miss
thought that
field
maybe
work.
a cloud of bees could be a hard thing to avoid, and work similarly to gas, just with bee-sized particles. In an effort to cut the scope of the level, bees were on the chopping block. But that's when the hive mind agreed to take a pay cut and save the game.
Oh, really?
Being asked to perform in I Expect You to Die is my proudest personal achievement. Little old hive mind out there on the big stage. I couldn't have done it if it wasn't for my 45,732 assistants. You the real MVPs.
Getting in there one way or another.
Adding an elevator button seemed like an obvious choice, but it quickly turned out having it poses a lot of game design challenges for the level. We worried about players being put off by the lack of it, but in playtests, nobody seemed to notice, let alone be bothered by its absence.
Indeed. Just gonna hover that over there. Hive mind. Fucking best villain name ever. You know the gimmick at a glance. I should probably just quit out before someone shows up. I don't know. Yoink. And oh, yeah, this one.
The data reel you retrieved from Madrid revealed that the Death Engine is a weapon that appears to be, well...
Come on now.
When I said infiltrate, I didn't think you'd hijack a personnel shuttle. I'm impressed. Our intelligence tells us the Death Engine is run by a single Zoraxis operative who will likely mistake you for a henchperson. Remember, Agent, destroy the Death Engine at all costs.
Personnel shuttle, you're cleared for docking. Come in, shuttle. Hello? Of course, they sent me a new assistant at the worst possible time. Brace for impact!
Hey, boy.
Is that a countdown I'm hearing? What could... Oh my...
Glorious, isn't she? I get chills every time she fires.
Just letting the audio play out so you don't interrupt it.
10 minutes. Note to self. Check on fuses and adjust the risk assessment calculations. The chances of the shuttle surviving the next blast are, well, low.
Having an electrical circuits puzzle felt like a very natural fit for this level. The deadly fuse box went through many revisions. Having an electrical circuits puzzle felt like a very natural fit for this level. The deadly fuse box went through many revisions to make it less punishing. Some earlier, having an electrical circuits puzzle felt like a very natural. Having an electrical circuits puzzle felt like a very natural fit for this level. The deadly fuse box went through many revisions to make it less punishing. Some earlier, nastier versions involved no labels on the cover panel and no way to mitigate the need to periodically power on life support. What we didn't quite anticipate is the confusion some of our younger players would have around the concepts of a fuse box and how fuses work. We think we found ways to mitigate most of them, but I feel there's still a youth tax on that puzzle.
Figured out how to use a rotary phone. That's something. Of course, I'm 26. I think I remember seeing one when I was like 5 or so, but like, I don't know.
Developing the look and feel of the level presented an interesting challenge. We wanted the familiar spy imagery of the 1960s, but space leans more on the futuristic and modern side. For this level, we went for what the 1960s thought the future would look like. The shape language and the colors in this level reference various machines, buttons, and technology of the 1960s. Of course, Dr. Zor's technology, developed by Commander Solaris, may have been far beyond its time.
Indeed.
Do keep in mind that shuts down life support as well.
There's one.
Going to space, we knew it's going to be our deadliest level yet. Still, we didn't anticipate just how lethal something as seemingly straightforward as operating an airlock can be. These two buttons started off without any indication of what they do, and an unavoidable death if both doors got open at any time. It seemed like there's no rule for whether the top button made more sense opening inner or outer doors, and players really struggled remembering which one did what. In the end, we were happy to have taken a bunch of teeth out of this innocent-looking death trap, and still observed plenty of players fall victim to it at least once or twice.
Oh, I see. Like it's lined up right there.
There's radioactive waste in your docking bay.
Yeah.
You can get to that after you're
One of the special things about this level is how dynamic Commander Solaris' reactions are. Not only will she remark on many of the things you can do, but she'll even change what she says based on how quickly you progress. If you're really quick, she won't even call Zoraxis headquarters. She'll know something's fishy if you already have the impact crate in your airlock by the time she gets her camera online.
I did that once. Don't expect me to do it for you just now, because that's a speed run, baby. Holy hell.
We really wanted to make this level feel like a culmination of all the other levels. What better way than to add little elements of the previous levels into this one? Some are pretty obscure, like how pulling your life support fuse to access other systems is a bit like opening the window to poisonous gas in Operation Friendly Skies. Others are much more direct, like the crystal-based gravity manipulation from Operation Winter Break, and the pulling of a panel to disable a superweapon from Operation Squeaky Clean.
Cool.
We really wanted to make this level feel like a culmination of all. The gravity machine in Operation Winter Break was one of the trickiest things to optimize because of all the floating objects bumping into everything. A level built around variable gravity would be foolhardy madness. So that's exactly what we did. We made it feasible by restricting the number of free-floating objects to about a dozen or so. This restriction also led to the computer taking over clue duties, which usually fall to the cards and notes you see in other levels.
There it is.
Encouraged by how well it worked in Operation Seat of Power, we wanted to lean on character presence even more in this level. To give Commander Solaris more space to speak, we decided to cut the player off from the handler. Encouraged by how well it worked in Operation Seat of Power, we wanted to lean on character presence even more in this level. To give Commander Solaris more space to speak, we decided to cut the player off from the handler and give her his job, commenting on player actions and giving hints. This was a fun challenge given how Commander Solaris goes from believing the player is an unexpected new assistant to ridiculing and eventually underestimating their ability as an agent. In the end, we are really happy with Melanie Minikino's performance.
Good to hear.
While we are usually careful about ramping up difficulty, Operation Death Engine was different. It being the last level, we decided to err on the harder, more punishing side. We spent a few iteration cycles making sure things don't get too frustrating, but our hope is that players come away feeling satisfied and accomplished rather than underwhelmed after breezing through what essentially is the boss level of I Expect You to Die.
Yeah.
Did you really forget to bring a space helmet? To space?
Shut up. There's this button.
Whenever we start making a new level for I Expect You to Die, we have a bunch of brainstorms for what kind of level it should be and where it should take place. Invariably, someone brings up the idea of a level that takes place in a bathroom. For many very good reasons, we've never done it yet. But the presence of this waste management system here is a little nod to this recurring idea.
Obviously. That's hardly my problem, is it? I see. Yes. No. Maybe. I'll take care of it, I suppose. Understood.
Anything in there?
I said I understand.
Nope, nothing in there.
Well. You're far from home, aren't you, Agent?
Yeah.
I think that I almost removed that radioactive
Whatever.
waste from your docking bay.
Well, there we go. I Expect You to Die, all done and dusted. A couple of sequels released well, not recently, they've been out, but like, I've got other plans to do before then, let me tell you. So let me just, check some things real quick. Where's closing credits, are there any, things there for some reason? I don't know.
All's well that ends well, as they say. You've escaped in a pod in the Caribbean, blew up a lodge in the Alps, crash-landed a car in exotic Zanzibar, broke a window on a building down the street, enjoyed a relaxing vacation, piloted a flying armchair, and explored the very cosmos. I must admit, I expected you to die at some point, and in a way, you did. Till next time, Agent.
Yeah, that's just something that plays if you check it again. I don't know.
Well, Agent, you've finally done it.
Let's,
You're dead. At least
check,
officially. It was
well, not the closing ones, we're at the opening ones. Here's the opening ones. Any buttons hidden there?
The intro credits sequence was not originally a planned part of the project. It started off as an experiment with no art or tech support, stealing assets from the levels and making new objects like coffins and sharks out of simple cubes and spheres. Many of the unique objects you see during this sequence are still actually from abandoned iterations of levels. For example, the Tesla coils in the final hallway are early versions of the virus vat from window washing, and the rocket silos are from an old version of the lodge. There are certain materials that appear as a solid color regardless of angle or lighting. We use these elsewhere in the game for luminous objects like indicators indicator lights or lasers. We created the flattish style of the credits by applying these types of materials exclusively. Everything is still 3D, and it's especially interesting in VR because your brain still tries to parse the distance and shapes of these silhouettes. And it can, to a certain extent, when different colors are near each other. This allowed us to do little tricks like have something that seemed flat suddenly reveal depth as you move, like the agency logo, or have objects morph as they rotate. This song literally began as me improvising lyrics into my phone late at night, coming into work and being like, hey Bonnie, hey Tim, what if we did this but like, actually good? We were still bootstrapping at this point, but I approached Jared, Sean, and Mark with the phone-sung song and thrown together visual prototypes. They were on board enough for us to feel comfortable continuing to experiment, with the hope that perhaps this was something that could be unlocked at the end of the game. Jared did his own pass on the lyrics, and by fusing the two versions, I got our final song.
Once the lyrics were close to their final state, I felt inspired on my lunch break one day and recorded myself singing the lyrics a cappella, which ended up being pretty much the final melody of the song.
I then took the lyrics, the original phone recordings from Connor, and the melody Bonnie recorded, and fleshed it out into a full-fledged song. The first recording of the song was just me and my piano, recorded hastily in my apartment at like 2 in the morning. Eventually, I made another version of the song with a rough instrumentation of strings and brass, with Bonnie singing lead and both of us on the backing vocals.
In January 2016, we finally showed our credits experiment to the studio leadership. It went pretty well. It was decided that this would be the first thing you've seen, which is a little more pressure.
Meanwhile, I was working on fleshing out the orchestration more with virtual instruments and made a new demo. I submitted a segment of that demo to the Music Demo Derby at GDC. The feedback we received was that it sounded like a polished demo rather than a final product, and that we should look into recording live instruments. We contracted some studio musicians, recorded new vocals with Bonnie and the background singers at local Pittsburgh studio Red Cayman, and then they took care of the rest of the mixing and mastering of all our stems. We ended up with a really great final product. I don't think any of us ever imagined that this would have been possible, but we are all incredibly proud of the end result.
Indeed you should be. This is a damn good game. But, anyways, this is Weird Alexander signing out. Catch you on the flip-flop.